This is Heroine Addiction, presented by That Time I Got Reincarnated in the Same World as an Anime Podcaster, where we cover romance and drama manhwa, and where being a slave is better than being in a loveless marriage. I'm Isekai Sensei-Sama, aka Brad, and as always, I'm joined by Bento Baggins, aka Ben.
Yeah, well, that last part, I don't know if that's the official position of the podcast, but
Well, be sure to find us on social media, which you can find links for on our website, animepodcasterreincarnation.com. Today we're going to be covering Beatrice, which apparently is pretty controversial. But as always, I will be reading the summary and then we'll get into the discussion. As the last princess of El Paso, Beatrice could only watch as the Nostros Empire destroyed her homeland. Now, forced to live as a slave in the Empire, the former princess adopts the name Chloe to hide her past and start anew. But when Duke Alexander, the very man who destroyed El Paso and attempted to kill Beatrice, takes notice of Chloe for her intellect and charm, a hide-and-seek romance between a princess in hiding and a wicked duke unfurls. I don't think that's entirely accurate.
no. I mean, he's not really the one who notices her talent. I guess he does. I mean, technically he notices them, but it makes it sound like he's the one that like uplifts her. That is not the case.
Yeah, and I guess it sort of works for the first couple chapters, but then it quickly falls apart, especially considering like she didn't adopt the name Chloe. That was her original name.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of questions about this one. So how do you want to do this? Do you want to summarize a little more, or
what do you think there is to summarize? So
that's a part of this.
the major points are when she was young, she was a slave and worked in an apothecary. But she's isekai'd and she was a doctor in her previous life. And so she's got medical knowledge from being a doctor and then also working in an apothecary.
Wasn't this a double isekai? Wasn't she like originally or am I mixing stories now?
It might be. So just to get this out of the way, I hadn't read this in a while because the official translation was on hiatus for a long time. I think at the end of season 2. And so when it came back, I started reading it again at season 3. And, you know, at season 3, there's just all this romance and stuff going on. And so when we decided this is what we were going to do, this is the series we were going to cover, I went and started back at the beginning so I could remind myself of what was going on. And boy, is there a lot going on.
Okay.
So it's possible, because I got through something like 30 chapters at the beginning just to sort of remind myself. Mm-hmm. I don't remember, at least in the beginning, it only mentioned her being isekai'd once. But that is a popular trope where like they're originally from that world and they went to Korea and then they came back. But they don't know that and all that kind of stuff. That could be happening here. I don't remember that, so I can't say for certain.
So since we started doing this, I've talked to people in the community a little bit. And I think when we were having the spoiler discussion and people mentioned content warnings, and how a lot of times people ask for spoilers just to know if they're going to be into the romance. Mm-hmm. And like, this is one where it is really tough for me to judge because I will not be able to get past the slave thing. And I know that's like that might not be entirely fair, because there's a lot of like problematic romance that has something that other people can't get past. Like I've read Twilight is just a low hanging example of like, yes, it's an adult man hanging out in a high school and hitting on a teen girl.
I feel like that is equivalent at least.
Yeah, and so like I could get past that in Twilight, and I don't know why, because it's not much better than the slave thing here. But yeah, for some reason, for me, like I started thinking about that as I was reading it, because I was like, they make it better, but
well,
like,
here's the thing: we haven't really done slavery yet. I don't think any of the series that we've covered have had slavery in them, at least not to the degree where it's a major point of the story. And this is front and center. She is a slave. She exists in this slavery system.
He owns her.
Well, technically, he doesn't. That's important. That might be important information for people. That he is not the direct owner.
No, okay. She's on loan to him from his
Because here's the thing. In isekai manga, the slavery is a thing all the time. I would say a good 25% or more of isekai manga have slaves in them. And a majority of those have the isekai protagonist having slaves and being in love with one or more of his slaves, and that love being reciprocated. It's never non-consensual, even though they're slaves, which technically means it is non-consensual, but they are in love with it.
Yeah. and like I said, I understand that there are probably fans of this manga out there who are aware that slavery is wrong and like it anyway.
I hope everybody understands that slave. Let's disclaimer for everyone listening: slavery is wrong.
Yeah, but like I said, it's like with Twilight. There's a lot of dumb romances that really play up something, some weird situation, and you can either get past it or you can't. And so for me, this would be one of the, if I were reading purely for my own enjoyment, this is one of the spoilers I think I would ask for in series. It's like, does it have a slave falling in love with a master? Well,
at least in this series, you'll know to not read within the first chapter, basically. 2, to be generous. I think it's in the prologue. You read the prologue and you're good to go.
Yeah, and so that's I just wanted to mention that up front, because that's going to color my whole review, I guess, is that it's extremely not my thing.
I think isekai fans in general are going to be more forgiving of this. I know Kermit is he's on your same wavelength.
It just happens to be like, this is a little insight into my own personal life that I don't usually give, but it's like one of the 3 political issues I actually get involved in the real world. Like I don't even super like prisoners for nonviolent crimes. I don't like I'm all about prison reform. I hate private prisons. I hate all that stuff. And so this is like, oof, can't do it. It's just, it touches a button for me of something I've been too involved in the real world to enjoy. And it would be like probably somebody reading Twilight who had some similar experience with anti-grooming stuff. So like I said, I'm not calling anybody who likes this problematic or anything like that.
Well, that's good, because I like this.
It's a button for me.
No, I think it's important. There's lots of things that trigger people in different ways, different levels. And, I think forced servitude is certainly a normal one to be triggered by. As we've seen before, it takes a lot to push my buttons. There's not a whole lot that does. So this is the kind of thing that, like, to me, it's more of like this is the setting that we're setting this story in, and it's not like, they're not glorifying slavery. They're just using it as a sentence.
Yeah. It's like in Twilight. The fantasy isn't to date 100-something-year-old man. The fantasy is like, what if he could be a hot 17-year-old who also had the maturity and experience
Except he doesn't, but okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, I think that's the vampire fantasy. Is like, what if the 17-year-olds around me weren't idiot half-formed males? Yeah. What if they were like sophisticated gentlemen?
Well, and I would say in most isekai that have slavery, the fantasy starts as, what if I could just pick a beautiful woman and like she had to be there,
Mm-hmm.
But I would say they generally tend to try and not be super creepy about it at some point. They start with like, oh, this is what teenage boys think. They're like, oh, if I could just, and then they try to like shift it into like, oh, actually they're in love. Beatrice is different than those. I just want to be clear with that. It is not the typical isekai manga slavery setup.
No, the thing with Beatrice seems to be that I think what they're trying to do is not necessarily a bad theme. I think the unfortunate thing is it doesn't really develop at all until the second season.
Yeah.
Where the theme is she has nothing. She is supposed to be like the lowest rung of society. I kind of think that's why she's a slave.
Not quite. They make it clear near the beginning that there are different levels of slaves, and branded slaves are the lowest. And the one knight who's a piece of shit almost branded her. So she was almost put to that level, but not quite.
As far as I haven't read the full thing. I've read about half of season 2. Have they done anything with branded slaves?
No.
Okay. So I think she is basically the lowest rung, but like that was to like make some of the people more redeemable by saving her from a branding. So I think what they're trying to do here, to be generous, is she's really low down. She has no status, basically. And they
do have a lot of points near the beginning where like people are treating her like shit because she's a slave. And you're reading it going, why are you being so mean to her? She's helping you. What are you doing? So I think the author is trying to point out that like, no, slavery is bad. I'm setting this story in this, but slavery is bad.
It's bad. And I think what they're going for is she has nothing, but she is happy and content. As long as she can do the work she wants to do, which is medicine, not slave tasks. And fortunately, she's discovered as being a talent for medicine pretty early on and given the freedom to explore that talent.
Yeah.
Which makes it less painful to watch. If it was just her being ordered around, she is ordered around a lot, but it's like it starts to become more playful.
Well, and I don't like that thing, and this isn't the only author who does that, but where like it's a servant or a slave or whoever, and somebody orders them like, oh, clean this or do this menial labor task, and they're like, that's the task that I love to do. It's like, come on.
Yeah, at least it's medicine. At least it's something intellectually like stimulating for her. But there's definitely like a little bit of a submission kink angle to this. There's the one princess that loves to be spanked.
Well, that was
And
actually, that brings up an important point, because there's a part of me that thinks this is actually a comedy.
I think it's supposed to be light. I think it's supposed to be lighthearted, at least.
Into the third season, there's all this stuff going on where they're having this whirlwind romance, right? But the way that their relationship has been so far is that she has been serving as his like personal assistant / maid, and lots and lots of people around them think that she is a man.
He's pretending to be gay specifically to piss off his father, who he hates.
There's a bit of problematic stuff here, but I don't think that he is pretending to be gay, but he is inciting the rumors. Like, he's not correcting people. And so, like, into season 3, there's all of this stuff going on where people are, like, misinterpreting, and the people who know are like, oh my God, what's going on? And his dad thinks he's gay, but his dad's like, I was a piece of shit, and so I want to be good to my son, so I'm going to be okay with this. And, like, there's a part of me that's like, being gay isn't a joke. So I sort of don't like that. But also, like, a lot of it is pretty hilarious.
It's definitely edgy at times. So let me guide you through my impressions, I guess. So story opens up with the male lead enslaving the female lead, and then just killing another woman who was a noble. And yes, she was rude and insubordinate, and she had lost a war and was still trying to, like, cop an attitude. He stabs her in the chest after threatening to sexually assault her.
I was a little confused about what was going on there. Like,
it's not, he doesn't say it, but he starts cutting off her dress.
Yeah. And, I mean, stabbing someone directly through the heart is a very quick death. So there was part of me that's like, oh, I think he's like, because he was talking about, oh, we're going to cut off her head and all that. And then the other knights that were there were like getting really rapey.
That is this. If you're going to tell me that like, oh, he's fixable because he gave her a quick death, that is peak Isekai.
I think that's what they were going for. Honestly, I don't agree with that. And I have an issue in general with this male lead. But like, I think that's what they were going for. And the idea being like, oh, he could have let those other knights have their way with her, and she could have been humiliated and then killed anyway and all that stuff. But he gave her a quick death to just like get it over with. And I was like, yes, whatever. Moving on.
There's this running rumor about him that I think the author, this is where I lost a little bit of confidence in the author. I think the author might be unaware of how bad he actually is. And yeah, right. Because there's this rumor going around, right, that he likes to hit women. And I think the author is trying to insinuate that that's not true, but he does. He definitely does. He does it all the time. He's at least, it's not a problem for him. Like if a woman steps out of line, he's happy to show her the back of his hand. Like,
did that happen more than with the
every woman who insists on staying in his room, which again, okay, they're crossing boundaries, they're making him feel uncomfortable. His solution to every woman who stays too long is, if you don't get out of here, I'm gonna hit you. And then he hits them, and then they like it, and then he's like, you're weird, and then he throws them out. And it's, again, I think it's supposed to be funny. I don't think it's
authors, maybe they're just trying to give a wide audience what they want.
I don't think they're trying to give a wide audience what they want. I think it is low-key kink. I think it is all about the sub-dom thing. I think they like him putting people in their place.
I mean, there's slavery, there's BDSM. I mean, maybe that's what this is. Maybe we're all just interpreting this wrong, and this is just a series for people who are into BDSM.
I don't know. Obviously, it is. Like, was that subtle? Because that's the only way this works.
I think you could miss it.
Because that's the only way this works. Is like So what they're trying to do from like the heart of the story is she is this simple, pure creature who just wants to do medicine, which is a skill that will help people. And she finds it very intellectually rewarding. And he has everything. He's the crown prince or whatever he is. But
he's not.
Yeah. Well, they want him to be, but he doesn't want to be. But he could have the world. And he is miserable. Yeah. And he just keeps looking at her. And that's what starts to attract him to her is, how can she be so happy with nothing and I could be so unhappy with everything? And that's a good theme. If people are drawn to that part of the story, I totally understand it. That doesn't happen until 42 chapters in, but they do get there, I guess. And it's kind of obvious that they're going there. There's a lot of like stuff in. This is in every manhwa, and you have even talked about it with your dense female lead syndrome. But this is just general like density. Like things in manhwa are a little more dense, and
yeah,
he is constantly like, who is this slave who knows how to read and write, and knows medicine? How can that be? And it's like, okay, yeah, she cut her hair and she dresses like a boy. And you didn't super pay attention to her the last time you threatened to kill her. I get that. But then nobody knows who she is. She's just like, I'm Chloe. And everybody's like, hey, Chloe. Nobody's keeping track. There somewhere out there was a slave named Beatrice who like they just lost.
At the beginning where they're like, oh, these slaves are going to go around to these places. And they're like, hey, you're going to this house to be a slave. And then like she gets there and cuts her hair and tells people her name is Chloe, and no one follows up with it at all.
Yeah. Yep, they did a head count. We got the appropriate number of people.
Yeah.
I don't care who they are. Yep.
I did.
And she's a princess though. Like it doesn't even make sense for her to be lost in the shuffle. Even if she's discredited. Yeah,
I think they sort of wanted to gloss over that with saying like, oh, she was a princess, but they knew that she was a former slave turned into a princess and she had no power. So they just let her live. She can just be a slave. And then like, that was it. That was all they were going to do about that. As opposed to, and by the way, talented maid, slave. In case we forgot.
That's true.
But as opposed to there, where like her being a princess of that kingdom is really important. Here, they're just like, whatever. Being a princess doesn't matter.
I'll tell you what gets, like, I could let it go if they didn't make it.
Liked a talented maid.
Yeah. If they didn't make it such a focal point of the story. Like, it's so uncomfortable for somebody to have dialogue multiple times. I love being a slave.
Yeah, that's... yeah.
I wouldn't change it for the world.
In A Talented Maid, like, they talk about, oh, they're slaves at the beginning, and then almost immediately, she's just a regular maid the whole time. And I think they bring it up one or two times later on. But then they're like, oh, and also you did a bunch of cool stuff, so you're not a slave anymore. oh, you did a bunch of cool stuff. Now you get a title. Like, they get through that, like, real quick.
Mm-hmm. Like, I don't mind. I understand, and I don't want to go down this road super far, but, like, I understand it's a little different than what happened in America. Not different enough to not matter, but as an American, yeah, I can't.
We should probably maybe talk about that a little bit just so everybody's on the same page. So in the United States of America, you know, everybody knows about, you know, black slavery.
Chattel slavery.
What was called chattel slavery.
Yeah.
And that was more akin to slaves being
livestock.
Yeah, basically. Like, people would breed them with other slaves specifically to, like, make better, stronger, you know, babies and stuff like that. And it was, you know, they were purely property, as opposed to a lot of other slavery systems, which, gonna drop this piece of trivia right now. The longest running slavery system in the history of humanity was in Korea.
Oh.
And lasted for 1,500 years.
I don't think I knew this. Okay. That might explain a lot.
Yeah, that explains a lot. However, a lot of those slavery systems in other parts of the world were not explicitly chattel slavery. And I forget what the word is for it. But basically, those forms of slavery were, it was still, you know, forced labor, but there were a lot more protections for slaves. And it wasn't.
You could go to jail for beating the hell out of a slave.
Right. It wasn't as if they were purely your property. It was more like,
you often didn't go to jail for it, but in theory, you could.
Forced servitude, but the slaves still had rights. You know? And so I think when we look at these Asian-centric slavery stories in Isekai and other ones from Japan or Korea or China or whatever we're looking at, they have a different idea of what slavery was than we do. Because while both of the versions are bad, one is significantly worse.
One is something you could, well, I say you could never romanticize. Damned if they don't try in America. A couple of times.
Significantly more difficult, right?
But yeah, it's just not, it's not forgivable. The whole like slave romance thing. I've seen movies. They exist.
Yeah.
But it's not forgivable. That's one where I'd say like, I think if you're really into that, like if that's your genre, something wrong with you.
And at the end of the day, it's still one person owning another person and being able to make them do whatever they want.
If it's inappropriate to get with your employees, it's certainly inappropriate to get with
significantly more so.
But if you're the type of person who would own slaves, I doubt you care about that. Which is kind of why I can't like the male lead.
But again, he's not her owner.
Oh, okay. But he does own people. He's just not her.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know if he owns any slaves.
That might be.
I don't think he does.
That they should play that up.
Yeah, they should.
They should emphasize that fact. Because
actually probably would have made it a lot better if they were like, yeah, everybody else has slaves, and the general assigns Chloe to him to take care of him during this parade that they're doing. But he explicitly has never taken any slaves, and he doesn't like the slavery system, and he wants to end it. And then what you could do is you could be like, hey, I know you don't want to be the emperor, but what if you were the emperor and you got rid of slavery? Wouldn't that be cool?
Well, I'll tell you what, you're writing a wholly different story because he enslaves people. That's how this goes.
John Brown Isekai when?
Yeah. If Frederick Douglass goes back in time and just murders this guy with his bare hands, saves the manhwa for me. But
you want to murder the one person who doesn't treat slaves badly? What?
The manhwa opens with him stabbing a defenseless woman through the chest.
She wasn't a slave.
No, but it's not good. And then enslaving another woman.
Okay.
And that was like the kind thing to do. He's not a good guy. It's not a good kingdom. And I know he has issues. I know he had a really hard time. I know his mom didn't give him lots of hugs growing up.
She hugged him that one time.
Yeah, and I know his dad was kind of mean sometimes.
All the time.
And so now he retreated to the battlefield where he became a big, strong daddy. And now he can really discipline those slaves. But here's the other thing I don't like. I have this problem in a lot of stuff. She's not a person, she's a puppy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Hardcore. Almost more so than any other series that I've read. She is just like getting washed away with the tide every single time. The amount of oh crap, what's the word I'm looking for? Agency. The amount of agency that she has is akin to, I probably shouldn't tell him I love him because he needs to be a big important man, and I would take that away from him if I tell him that I love him. That's it.
Well, and I saw somebody post somewhere that like they get really sick of how the male lead is just constantly stupefied that she can enjoy being a slave, and it's like that's one of the more relatable parts of his character, to be honest. Right. Is like, girl, your brain broke? Like, because it kind of is. Like, every time she's saying something that should be super uncomfortable, like, I love being a slave, she's saying it as a literal squirrel person. Because they chibify her and put a squirrel tail on her and make it all cute. And that's so endearing to the dominant protagonist who is always portrayed as a tall, imposing man with rippling muscles and a chest broader than your house.
They showed his nipples real fast, too.
Oh, yeah.
I do want to point out some information that I saw, which is she's actually a year older than him.
Yeah, I knew that. She mentions that.
They constantly are portraying her as if she's like 16.
Well, he calls her a kid for the whole first season.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
Everybody keeps calling her a kid. And, I mean, I guess fair enough. She's very tiny. She looks very young. But, like, okay, she's supposed to have been like a 30-something-year-old doctor in her previous life. She has all of her memories. And yet, and they even point out at one point, they're like, oh, she acts so mature. And I was like, no, what are you talking about? She doesn't act like she lived for 30 years and then another 23 or whatever it is.
No. So she's super meek, super mild, super small, super boyish. But then there's this conversation where somebody finds out who she is. And it's like a checklist where he goes, no, Your Highness, didn't you know she's, checks notes, a princess, 25, female, and all around totally bonable. You could do this. Like, this is a real possibility for you. And he's like, oh shit, she should start sleeping in my tent. And it's like end of season 1. I'm like, okay. The bulk of the story is him, I guess, yeah, he's slowly softening, but never too soft. He's always got to throw somebody up against a wall or hit a woman or...
Yo, okay, so very specifically, when season 3 came back, or when season 3 started. I started reading it again, and I was like, oh, right, yeah, I really like this. Oh, they're really cute together. It's a cute romance, and they're so deeply in love, and like, but there's all this stuff going on, and it's like interesting and everything. And then I think it was 1 or 2 chapters into season 3, there's a point where she shows some hesitancy or something like that. And at this point, I was like completely back on board. Like, yeah, I really like this series. She shows some hesitancy, and he immediately like flies off the handle and is like, if you are, no, I have to have you, but, and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, okay.
There he is.
Yeah, no.
There he is. Yep.
And then I went, like I said, I went back and started rereading from the beginning, and I was like, oh God, oh my God, he's terrible.
So, one part I genuinely enjoy that comes in the middle of all of this, and I actually laughed and I had a fun time with this, is that because everybody thinks she's a boy, all of the maids who like gossip amongst each other start writing BL fan fiction in universe about Chloe and
Troy.
Troy.
That's what they call her. Or
I
him,
don't even remember that. About Troy and whoever, and Alexander,
the heir to the Gray household. Yeah. It's like they're very close names.
Yeah, and she often like sneaks off to the market to buy the latest volume, and she is squeeing over BL fanfic of herself. And I was like, that was a solid joke.
It's genuinely funny at times. Like, just earlier this morning, I was reading some of the latest chapters. I literally laughed out loud because of it, specifically that they were going back and forth about this. The general was confronting the maids about this book, and it was genuinely funny.
And they show like they have like little covers for it.
Yeah. It's like a hardback bound book that apparently is just BL fan fiction, like that got actually printed multiple in the series.
Well, and this is the thing. Like, I understand that the whole playing gay thing could be a problematic trope as well, but I grew up. I'm old. I'm not so old that I grew up watching this when it was coming out, but I grew up watching it on Nick at Night, Three's Company, where the whole plot is it's a guy who lives with 2 girls, but the landlord doesn't approve, so the guy has to pretend to be gay.
Yeah.
I laughed at that. Like,
the representation for gay people in this is actually not terrible. I think for some people, the jokes they make about it might be a little too touchy. I don't know that any of them are entirely too far. And within the setting itself, it makes sense because this is like back in time and people aren't exactly okay with people being gay. But there are legitimately gay characters in the series. The people around them are not okay with that, but come to be okay with it. And I think more specifically, the fact that the emperor, the duke's dad, Alexander's dad, was originally like very upset to hear these rumors that his son might be gay. As soon as he realizes that his son might not be around him, and you didn't get to this, but he's immediately like, no, I'm fine. You can be with a guy. I
saw it starting to go that way, and what I was going to say is this is the part of the story that works for me. The whole her being mistaken for a boy and this rumor evolving and him not stopping it.
I mean, the funny thing
encouraging
is,
it.
as terrible as he is, generally speaking, he's the most progressive because he's like, I don't care if people think that you're a boy. Let them think that. That's fine. I'm not even going to try and correct it.
Yeah. And so I don't hate that part of the story. That worked for me. I thought it was funny. I really like the joke about them having their own fanfic. I wasn't super into it until the maids started like shipping it. And then I was like, okay, this is kind of funny. And then the dad is getting letters and he's like, oh God, send him women. And then he beats the women. And I'm like, oh, well, okay.
I don't think he bruised them, though.
Okay. What's that Family Guy show? Hit him with a sack of sweet Valencia oranges.
It's just a little bit of BDSM. Potentially non-consensual BDSM.
Yeah. I mean, the one girl like gets really into it. And
I thought that was funny. Because
that's funny.
It's so the thing with the Duke's daughter, it started out as like, oh, she's really creepy and like non-consensually trying to be around him. And then he like legitimately punishes her and she's like, no man has ever done that before. Oh shit, I'm into that.
No man has ever done that before. It's I don't even care if you want to have a BDSM manhwa. I think that's totally fine. It just can't be between a slave and a master.
Well,
that's my only thing.
It's not though. He doesn't treat Beatrice.
That's true. That's true. But the problem is, I guess it can't be if you want to do the BDSM thing, if you want to have a dom and a sub, the dom can't also own slaves. That's a little too.
Again, we don't know that he does.
He enslaves people, though. He makes people slaves.
Okay, I'll give you that.
That's the part of his character that I don't like is and that's something that the author clearly finds sexy. Is that he's on the edge of being a villain, but only her sweetness can save him. But sometimes when if you forgot, he could really just be very mean to people.
I think there's
every 10 chapters or so, there's a reminder.
I think it's like a yandere thing.
Yeah.
There's a part later on, what I was talking about before, where he sort of flies off the handle and is like, no, you have to be mine kind of thing, is the one gay character has sort of made a pact with Chloe that they're going to get married so that she can be his beard. I hope everyone's familiar with that term. And Alexander finds out that this is going on after he's already confessed to her. And so he doesn't understand that they set up that agreement earlier. She hasn't told him about that yet, but he finds out through other means. And he flies off the handle and like goes to trigger and is like, I'm going to fucking kill you and all that kind of stuff. And he's like psychotic, right? And I'm just like, okay, dude, this is too far. You need to work on your communication skills. That should be first thing.
Like at any point so far in the series, does he free her?
I mean, he just kidnapped her. So I think technically he's freed her. So because that wouldn't make it better. I mean, it would make it better. I mean, it wouldn't make it good. But he's like, I could give you anything you want. And I was like, well, why don't you just start with a couple of things? She doesn't seem to care about being freed.
Yeah. So why don't you just do it and see if she hangs out? You know?
Yeah.
Like, and I could tell you what the answer would be from this character's perspective is that he wouldn't do that at that point in the story because he's afraid she would leave. And I was like, and that's the thing though. Like
she
needs to be able to do that.
I have to disagree with you here because, this is difficult because like, I want to say you should have read farther, but also there's a lot of stuff in here that you're not into. And so you can't read farther, but it gets better. So you should read farther, but then you have to go through more of the stuff you don't like. And that's bad.
Well,
but,
okay. So this is,
he very specifically is like, I love you so much. We can just run away. I don't care that you can't have babies. I just want to be with you forever.
Okay. Wow. I didn't even know that part. Okay.
And she is continually rebuking that. She over and over again says, we can't do that because you're so important in the country and I'll drag you down and it'll be bad for you. And she's saying like, it's bad for you, not. And she keeps going, I love him so much, but I can't do that to him. And he keeps going, I don't care. I just want to be with you. I'll throw away everything. And then when she's like, yes, I do like you, he immediately kidnaps her and runs away.
Okay. So you've gotten into spoilers for me. So she's infertile. I didn't know that.
That's what, I can't remember if it was like explicit or if she's just like, I'm pretty sure I can't have kids.
Okay. So I was hoping maybe that's not terrible, I guess. Because one of the things is when they go to see the fortune teller who I think I know something about that I don't know if it's been in the manga yet.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
So I read a scanlated version of this a long time ago that is significantly farther than the current official translation. And yes.
Okay. So she mentions that he wants to be a father in her prophecy or whatever.
Okay. I'm just going to spoil this outright. If you don't want a pretty major spoiler, skip about 2 minutes. Okay, ready?
Ready.
They literally just find a baby.
Okay.
They run away. They go to this little village. And there's just a baby there. And they're like, whose baby is this? Everybody's like, we don't know whose baby this is. And they're like, I guess we'll just keep his baby.
All
Problem
right.
solved.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I wondered if they were going to do something with that. Like if he would let that go to be with her. If that was something
he was gonna.
Yeah.
He was fully prepared. He's like, I don't care about anything else than just being with you.
I think that's an interesting romance twist.
And there's this weird thing because this is explicitly a romance, right? But I feel like the actual romance doesn't really get kicked off until into season 3, which is weird because it's definitely a romance.
The first 40 chapters, with a few exceptions, obviously, some things move forward. But it's basically the same chapter over and over and over. It's just him noticing something about her being afraid of him going, why is she afraid of me? It's because you have complete power over her. You could just say you're dead and then she dies. That's why she's afraid of you, you ridiculous monster. And then she's a squirrel sometimes because that's cute. And then she finds medicine. Nobody thinks she can cure people because she's a slave and slaves are stupid. But then she finds a medicine and she cures it. Sometimes it's a horse. Sometimes it's a person.
That really important horse.
Yeah. And there's all the while they're just on this walking tour of the kingdom. And he walks around for he's visiting each kingdom to insult them to their face and move on. as a diplomatic mission. He either walks in and he's like, your people are well fed. Good for you. Fuck you, I'm leaving your banquet. And then he walks into some kingdoms, he's like, your people aren't well fed. I don't like you. Fuck you, I'm leaving your banquet. And that's another thing. He doesn't go to parties.
To be fair, he continually tells everyone that he doesn't want to be in charge of anything.
Yeah, okay. I'm with him there. That's great for him.
He's very honest about it.
If I were writing a story though, I feel like I would make that point once, maybe twice, and then like season 2 should be the second half of season 1.
I think
season 3 should be season 2.
I think season 2 is where it falls because so in my rereading, I got most of the way through season 1, and I actually found the pacing to be really, really good. It moved along quickly. The chapters were very easy to read. They didn't feel too long, and we progressed through stuff very quickly. If I'm remembering correctly, I think where it sort of falls apart is the extended period that they're doing this parade thing.
Oh, does it ever end? I thought that was just going to be the whole story.
Well, he just kidnapped her
from
in
the
middle
parade
of it. So
okay.
So
well, I guess
think
that's the other thing.
maybe just skip season 2. Yeah, I don't know that a whole lot of important stuff happens in that part.
Well, if that's the case, then skip most of season 1.
Maybe. I
Once
think the whole thing with the horse is a good setup for like
you need to get her on the walking tour. But
right,
once she gets on the
knows what
walking
she's
tour,
doing, yeah.
I mean, there's like, and like with other manhwa, the way they get around that is like you obviously want this to take some time and have some will they won't they build up the tension. So to make that not super boring, other manhwa would bring in side romances, side characters, like quicker plots that can be set up and paid off in the background. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to do that a little bit with the one knight who is gay, but they want him to marry. There's another guy who's dating a maid who is the prince's father's anti-gay spy. And like I don't even know if anybody remembers that because it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
There's a guy spying on him every time so the prince likes to hang out around a lot of other shirtless, hairless dudes in the water, getting sweaty, whatever, what have you. And there's this spy who's watching him to make sure that they leave room for Jesus. And there's a point where he's getting a little too close to his one sparring partner, and the guy's like, "No, Your Highness, you can't. It's an abomination," or something. And he beats him up and then tells him to get out or he'll kill him. That's his solution to most problems, by the way. And that's just the end of that.
Frankly, I agree with him on that. Beating up homophobes? Yeah. Let's do that.
I mean, if that were the only person he beat up, I'd be okay with that.
Now, to be fair, they do explicitly say and make it a point to show you that he has an aversion to women. Like he's not gay, but he really doesn't like women, generally speaking, because of what happened with his mom. And then having all these women throw themselves at him.
Does he connect that for himself in his own head? He's like, I don't like women because of my mom.
I think so. Well, I don't know if he specifically says because of my mom, but he's like, says something about like all women are snakes or something like that. And his mother is very prominently featured in that sort of sequence. So.
But I can be with Chloe because she's half boy.
Yeah, really? Honestly, I think that's sort of what's going on. Is like, oh, she's small and frail and not like these other women who put on airs and lie to your face. And also she's got a a boyish body. I mean, she could be a femboy, honestly.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes. I mean, even when it's weird. I haven't seen art from season 3, but she looks better with the short hair. It doesn't seem like they draw her to be super appealing as a princess.
Our rubrics are going to be really weird because this, like, there's a lot of differences between season 1, 2, and 3.
I didn't notice a huge difference in season 2.
The art changes a lot. And not from like a model standpoint, like they keep the same models, but it gets significantly better, like significantly. To the point where when I went back to reread from the beginning, I was like, what am I looking at? What is going on here? This doesn't look anything like what I was just reading.
Hang on, let me look at season 3's art. Oh, I see what you mean. There's definitely more. Oh, she's definitely looking more feminine too. Yeah, no, this definitely has more of that like shoujo feel. I think this might just be a case of the artist getting better.
Well, I think so because like I said, like the models are still the same, but they put so much more effort into like the shadows, the coloring, the layouts, and all that kind of stuff. Maybe we should just get into the rubric.
Yeah, let's do it. Oh God. I should do a live reading of some of these where I just guess what the next panel is going to say.
Hey, maybe our patrons would be into that. We could do a special hangout episode.
But I thought you wanted a child. You're all the child I need.
You gotta jump on our Discord and let us know what you want to see on Patreon.
Or if you're a huge Beatrice fan and you never want to see us again.
All right, so for the first time, it actually shouldn't be the first time but we didn't start the rubric until later. For the first time, we're going with the romance rubric. And as I said, I think this is going to be interesting because the romance doesn't really get started until season 3. So I think we're going to... This might be the most different our scores will have ever been. I think so far our biggest spread was 10 points.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm going to try my best. I'll talk you through it as we go.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to kick this off with content and ideas. I'm going to give this a 3. There's enough interesting things going on here, but none of them really feel important. And I think that's probably because they're just going for the romance. But you could definitely develop a lot of these plot points much more deeper and still have the romance going on. So...
Yeah, I think I agree with the 3. There are a few things here and there that I think are really good ideas, but for all the time they take, it's not really developed that much. Mm-hmm. If I was reading this week to week, I'd throw my phone at a wall. I can't even imagine waiting a week for some of those chapters. Which is going to lead well into the next category, which is pacing and structure.
Okay.
Where...
Go ahead.
I'll start. It's a 2.
Okay. I understand where you're coming from. I'm gonna disagree. I'm actually going to give a bit of a handicap here. I'm gonna give it a 4 for pacing and structure.
This is our biggest difference, I think.
The handicap that I'm giving here is that I'm sort of ignoring season 2.
I'm ignoring 33% of the material.
I know. But here's the thing. The pacing in season 1, at least as far as I got, I was very happy with. I liked the pace that it moved through. It was very bingeable. The recent chapters that have been coming out, I am really enjoying the pace of that. They're getting just enough within a chapter to give you something, but also giving you the bite that you want to get to the next chapter without being too frustrating. Whatever happened in season 2, I'm going to forgive them for, because they're doing such a better job in season 3. And they obviously, with season 1, showed that they have the ability. So I don't know what happened. I'm going to ignore season 2. I'm going to be generous.
Okay.
Anything more to say on that?
No, I think that's the difference between our scores, is I'm not going to ignore it.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's, you were right in the middle of it. So I'm not going to argue against your 2. I think that's perfectly fair. If I took all of them into consideration, I'd probably give it a 3. But I was very happy with the pacing and structure in season 1 and season 3. And so because of that, because that was so heightened for me, like I specifically noticed the pacing, like it stood out.
So this might be interesting. How long, if you were binging it, how many hours do you think it would take you to get through season 1?
Yesterday, I read 30 chapters in about 2 hours.
So that's about my pace as well. And I felt like, so 2 hours is like a feature film.
Mm-hmm.
Would I have wanted to read, like often I would read for 2 hours and felt like I had gotten nowhere.
So for season 1,
yeah.
I didn't feel like that. I felt like what I got through was, I mean, I get all those 30 chapters, they got to the parade and they were in the parade and moving through it. So.
You're right. Season 1 moves at a decent clip. It is season 2 where it's really like, why is she afraid of me? How could you love being a slave? Why is she afraid of me? I'm just a blank slate. I'm a squirrel. How could she love being a slave?
I'd be interested to know what happened that season 2 is like just so bad.
It is the Fellowship of the Ring of this series.
Wait, that's the first movie.
Yeah, I know. Well, the first book, it's the book, The Fellowship of the Ring, where it's just Frodo. It's just the hobbits walking.
Right.
For half of it. And I like that, but I'm very biased.
It's bad because it's like this other thing that I like.
If everybody was a hobbit, I'd be okay.
Well, she's she's so much smaller than everyone else.
You know what hobbits don't have? Slaves. Farmer Maggot, he does his own work.
Yeah, I think you're right.
If you're searching your memory for do the hobbits have slaves, they don't. I promise.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't think the men have slaves in the Third Age anyway.
No, that's true.
I'm sure the Numenorians did. Bastards.
I don't think the Numenorians did. That sounds like, that's where Tolkien might get a little problematic. That sounds like an Easterling thing. Moving on.
Indeed. Let us move on to characters.
Romance.
You said we were keeping characters. It's right here. I'm looking. Oh, I got them switched around. Okay. I'll move it down. All right. We'll do romance first, and then we'll talk about the characters, because that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, I suppose it does make more sense to go the other way.
All right. Well, since we've never done romance before, I'm just going to give these a read. Although I will let everyone know, you can go on the website and find these rubrics. I'm going to put up a specific page to have the rubrics on, so you can go and check that out if you want to play along. So romance. Out of 1, romance is characters who are supposed to have chemistry have none. You cannot see how the romance would engage any reader. At a 2, we have characters who are supposed to have chemistry have very little. The pairings seem forced. We are told that 2 or more characters fell in love rather than being shown how 2 characters fell in love. At a 3, we have characters have chemistry. The relationships are successful or charming, but there are some imperfections. The relationship may rely too heavily or on undeveloped cliches, stereotypes, or feels underdeveloped in some way. That one's a little wordy. At a 4, characters have chemistry. The relationship is fulfilling and memorable. Or if it is a negative relationship, it feels intentional. And at a 5, a ship that moves you to tears. The romantic tension and setup is paid off perfectly. So, based on all of those descriptions, and again, I'm going to point out, I'm into season 3 here. I'm going to give this a 4.
So this is where I'm going to walk you through. I think you kind of have to try to take it on its own terms. I don't like the slavery thing.
Yeah.
That was always going to be a hamper on it. But, like I said, I don't think anyone's confused that that's inappropriate. I think it's like a drama heightening device.
Right.
So I was going to go with a 3.
I think, honestly, I was going to say, if I only took this based on season 2, I think a 3 is probably appropriate.
Yeah, but if they do start, and it sounds like this happens, like they do start getting to know each other, talking about what each other wants, doesn't want, and they start sort of having, I guess, a real relationship, because right now she just doesn't feel like a person.
Yeah.
If that starts happening, I could see my way to a 4. I don't think I'm ever going to like this romance, but I don't think that means it's bad. I think this is one where I'll say, like, I'll separate my preference from is it good or is it bad? Mm-hmm. And I could see a 4. So I skimmed through some of season 3, just while you were mentioning the art. And it does seem like they're getting there. So I could make this like a 3.5 for me.
I think that's fair. And again, like, this is in such a weird space, because it's like season 2 isn't any good. Like, what is going on? But it's so much better than that would lead you to believe, just being mired in season 2.
Yeah.
But like, can you call something good when you have to be like, listen, you just have to read 70 chapters and then it's okay? Like, can you recommend something in that way?
I do. I mean, The Legend of Korra is my example of that. I think season 3 and season 4 are so good.
Oh, I think all of them are good.
I like all of
season
them myself.
3 and 4 are definitely the strongest.
But yeah, people hate season 1, and
I mean, people hate all kinds of stuff. All of Avatar is great.
Yeah.
All of it.
But I have recommended that. I was like, just give it 2 seasons. That's one where I've said, just give it 2 seasons and you'll be there.
You only have to watch it for like 14 hours and then it gets good.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't. I think the romance is fine. It's fine. It's not my trope, but I won't go on record here and say I've never liked a problematic romance. I can't judge anyone. So
I think problematic romances give you that juicy drama.
that's the thing. That's why they do it. Like we all know you wouldn't want to be in this relationship.
Yeah, right.
But it's a lot of fun to watch. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't treat this like real life.
It's not dating advice.
Right.
Slap that disclaimer on all romance media.
All right. So moving on to characters. I'm going to have to drop this one down to a 3 for characters. I don't feel like enough of the characters get enough time to be fleshed out and like make you start caring about them. There's enough of it there that you're interested in the characters, but then you never get the more time with them that you want to sort of fill out your mental image of them, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because this is the first manhwa I've read where the guy is the main character.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, he's not, but yeah, he is.
Like almost. So in everything else we've read, you spend way more time with the female lead than with the male lead.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not really the case in this one. Eventually it starts being like almost entirely from his perspective. Like it's his world, she's just living in it. It starts off with her in season 1, shifts to, and maybe that's why season 2 sucks.
Maybe.
Because it's him. It's mostly him.
Thinking about season 3, I think it's sort of a mix. There's a healthy mix, but I would say she's still sort of primarily the main focus point. Although it also sort of is generally more the story itself because it jumps around. They go back to like the general and what he's dealing with, and it goes to the father and what he's dealing with. And so it's less like, oh, we're just following this girl the whole time.
Like in a lot of otome isekai, you spend a lot of time with the female lead, her and her maids, her and her knight, and she's developing all these side relationships that improve her position. Mm-hmm. And so and I'm not a big advocate of side questing, but like if you're trying to have a long running otome isekai that has a lot of world building, the side quests can show you more about the world and keep the reader engaged and set up some stuff for the main relationship. And Chloe doesn't really do a lot of that because she's so go with the flow. She's like in the first season, she's got the doctor and the noble family she works for. She winds up helping treat the kids. I don't know if they're kids, but yeah. And so she builds relationships there, but then like that almost just gets totally hand waved away. The doctor pops up off screen in letters asking for her to write to him.
Right.
And that piques the main female or the male lead's interest. And
in rereading it, I was actually a bit upset because I liked what she was doing.
Yeah.
She was using her skills and like she was making a difference in these people's lives and they were liking her and talking to her and it was so much better. And then almost immediately they're like, we're going to go away for a year on this parade. And everybody's like, what? Well, I guess we have to let her. We can't keep her from the second most important person in the empire, right?
The parade sucks. Like, I don't understand that plot device.
That's a good point. And that takes up like all of the second season, most of the end of the first season, and most of the beginning of the third season. What if that just didn't happen?
Yeah. Like,
there's so many relevant things that could go on that could get them together without having to be on a journey together.
For example, people keep trying to poison him. And she knows everything about poisons and antidotes and diseases and cures. There's a whole lot of reasons to keep her around that aren't she's a cute little squirrel. I don't get the parade. I don't know where to put that on the rubric, but like I don't have a parade category.
This is there's a novel that this comes from. And apparently there's some significant differences from the novel. Not significant enough to be like, oh, it's a completely different story. I'm wondering how much emphasis the original author puts on this parade that they're going on. Because I feel like if you just cut all of that and sort of reworked it, this would be a significantly better series. I say as I'm giving it 4s, but
well, the parade is like there's no conflict. There's nothing moving the plot along.
Oh, but some of the people that they're going to visit aren't good people.
But he doesn't do anything about it. It's not like he's
doing something about it.
From land to land fixing the problems. He just tells everybody what he thinks of them and then pieces out. Okay. So that's, for me, characters, I would say 3. Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, you got to give it a score.
Yeah.
We talked about it for that long and you didn't give it a score. I think there's a lot of stuff that they could do to make that better. And I don't know. Get rid of season 2, apparently. That's going to be the takeaway from this.
The parade arc. It's the Planet Namek of this series.
So, read season 1 and then read season 3. Problem solved.
Read season 1. I'll send you the pages with the BL parody jokes from season 2, and then you can just skip the rest.
Make sure to post them on the Discord.
Yeah, I have some of them saved.
I bet you do. All right, art competency. Again, this is going to be a weird one. Actually, I think this one's pretty easy because I think the art competency has stayed pretty similar.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna I think I'm gonna have to go with a 3.
Oh, really? I was gonna go with a 4.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I think a 4 is fair. It's well put together. It all makes sense, but I don't think that they're trying anything. They're not trying to elevate it in any way. It's just here it is. It's just a normal manhwa style, which is nice and it's well put together, but like it doesn't elevate anything for me.
I think if the art were worse, no one would read this.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. 100%.
I think the only reason is because this one looks like at least professional.
Yeah. Now here's the thing. And this is where it's going to go up. Because for art competency...
You mean flourish?
No. For artistic flourish, I'm sort of between a 4 and a 5 on this. Mostly because in season 3, it is so good. It is so nice looking. And I was literally taken aback when I went and started from the beginning. And I was like, what am I looking at here? This looks like a different manhwa. And it's so weird because like the actual models, so what I would call the art competency is the same. It's got very similar sort of panel layouts and all that kind of stuff. But for some reason in season 3, the flourish, so the lighting and the backgrounds and everything around is so much better. It's like they took a whole bunch of time off and just practiced.
Well, I don't think they took time off. I think it was just literally they were drawing the whole time. I do think they got better. I mean, it looks like somebody who started off knowing how to draw. They were good at what they did, good enough to get a job, but now they're really comfortable, and now they're adding their own stuff to it.
That makes sense. I'm gonna give it a 4. I don't know that there's anything that quite bumps it up to a 5. If we did half steps, I'd probably give it a 4.5.
Yeah, I think I'm going with a 4 as well.
Anything else to say about Artistic Flourish?
I do some of the specific flourishes I like. They make the dude really sexy. I mean, they genuinely do. They pose him well. They draw him well.
He's the primary focus of the series.
Yeah, they make him look intimidating. That's probably where most of the flourish lies, is in like the sexual gaze, I guess. Because there's a couple of times where they do it with Chloe too, where he sees her and they make it work without changing her form to be outright sexier.
Right.
They managed to draw that skinny, like boyish frame in a way that highlights it. So, no, I think it's good.
Hey, and if you're into femboys, I mean,
well, who isn't?
This is the series. I mean, maybe that's going to play into personal preference. I don't know.
No.
I wasn't talking about you.
Oh, golly. We're learning.
Anyway. All right, well, let's get into personal preference then. This is weird. Okay. So before I started rereading this, after I sort of got back into season 3 here, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm sort of into this. This will probably be a 3 for personal preference for me. You know, I wasn't like chomping at the bit to get back into it, right? But then I went back and I reread from, chapter 1, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I like what's going on here. This isn't, I can see why I got really into this in the first place. And then I went back and started reading the latest chapters again, which I was, like 5 or 6 behind on. And I was just like, oh shit, I'm really into this. And I just like burned through those chapters. And so I'm going with a 4.
Yeah, I'm going with a 2. I hate that guy. I hate
fair.
His face. I think, like, I don't feel bad for him. His tragic backstory, like, I'm sorry his mom didn't hug him. That's not an excuse for what he is.
As normal with people in power, it's like, hey, I can feel bad that you had a tough time in some of your relationships, but also you have people wait on you hand and foot. I don't feel that bad.
No, he's such a dick. I just don't like him at all.
And season 3, he gave it all up for love.
I don't care. It's not going to be enough. I mean, it's really like he has this whole thing where he's like, I've committed so many sins. I've killed so many innocent people. And it's like, yeah, like women and children, like you're a monster. Like, yeah, actually, though.
But he was sad about it while he was doing it.
Yeah, and I know that's something of a trope in manhwa, where I haven't really seen one of these in the wild, I don't think, but I keep reading the memes people post about like all the horrible things he did, but it's okay because he feels bad now and he's changed and it's over. And everybody likes a villain. I get that. It's just in this case, his crimes are ones that like deal breakers for old Ben.
He does specifically think about the fact that he's happy now that the continent is unified and there's peace and that he doesn't have to do that stuff anymore.
Mm-hmm. There was no other way to bring peace. Nobody in the history of the world has ever done that without enslaving a bunch of people and stabbing a woman in the chest who you could have just thrown in prison. And
I don't think you should use our own history as a marker.
Maybe not like the history of my country, but I'm sure there was a country out there that did it. But yeah, it's a 2.
Are you sure?
It's a 2 for me. I don't think I just can't get behind this dude, and I don't really think she's much of a character either. I mean, I don't want. It feels bad picking on her because she is literally a squirrel, but she is literally a squirrel.
No, I think I would agree. She's more of a set piece than a character in a lot of ways.
No, it's his story, and the author is deeply attracted to him.
Yeah. I don't think, like, she doesn't really have goals and desires. Like, she loves him, but that's as far as it goes. Like,
Well, and that's like the point of her.
right. All of the cool things that she's able to do don't matter in the grand scheme of the story.
Yeah. No, it very much feels like the way you're going to like this is if you want to be in a relationship with that guy.
You don't?
No. I want to punch him in his perfect lips.
Maybe he's into that.
Maybe. I can accommodate that. So, yeah, it's 2 from me, dog.
All right, well, who would you recommend this to?
Genre fans, weekly. It's a 3.
Well, that's 3. I'm in total agreement on that. 3 for recommendation strength. If you just want sort of like a mindless romance with just pretty people, this is it. I mean, there's some funny bits in it. There's some dramatic bits in it. Beyond that, I don't know that there's a whole lot here for you.
Yeah, if you don't have my hangups about the nature of the romance, I don't think it's significantly worse than anything we've read, but it's not. It's real middle of the pack.
Yeah.
But for me, that little bit of stuff I don't like makes it not preferred.
So I purposefully didn't search out any of the controversy on this. I saw a little bit of stuff in like the comments and things, but I didn't go out and look for stuff. I'm gonna request that people jump on our Discord and tell me all about the controversy with this series. 'Cause here's the thing. The rating for this is 7.9. So just on the cusp of an 8, which is pretty high, but also, given how pretty this is, seems low. So there's obviously a mix of things going on here. People on the fence about it. So I'd like to know more about this. I don't really want to wade through forums and comment sections to get that information. So jump on our Discord and give me a summary.
I wonder if our little discussion was a good approximation of the controversy.
It might be.
Like it's just really problematic subject matter, and so yeah, slavery is a thing that you can only romanticize if you have no exposure to it. I think when somebody says, I love being a slave, especially in the English speaking world, I don't know Korea's history with it, though I suspect neither do the people that romanticize it, because I just can't imagine it's any kind of good. I don't think it's ever good.
Yeah. I think we've talked a lot about slavery in these stories, especially on the normal podcast. So we don't have to, do that deep dive again.
He's also a violent monster. I mean, that's probably controversial.
Maybe. It's one of those, like, this is, we've talked about it before, is like, it's very easy for me to just sort of gloss over those things and look at the the actual story that's happening with those things as just like set pieces for the story. And I completely understand people who, you know, can't look past those things. I think everybody has hangups in certain ways for certain subjects. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't want to be insensitive to those things. But
Then
at the same time,
like the story.
I like that I can enjoy things. I can see the problems that people have with these kind of subjects and feel sympathetic toward that. And also, feel sort of sad that it's not something that you can get over and just enjoy stuff. But
oh, you
what?
I feel sorry for you that you can't.
No, truly, honestly, like if I feel like the world is a better place when you don't have to deal with those traumatic things. Like those subjects can exist and you can talk about them and they don't deeply affect you emotionally even as bad as they are. I think I don't know. It's easier to navigate the world, I guess.
Well, I'd say in my case, like, it's not that I have, because I don't have any personal experience with that sort of trauma, but it's like you said, 2 hours to read 30 chapters. There's about 90 chapters out in the official release. Mm-hmm. So that's 6 hours. And in 6 hours, you could listen to a whole audiobook. You could read another manhwa. You could watch 3 movies. It's just what makes Beatrice worth it? That's where it's the weak recommendation for me. Yeah.
I don't know that I would tell someone, oh, you should binge this all in 6 hours. But, taken in, 10, 20-minute chunks over the course of 2 months or whatever, I think it's an enjoyable read. If you don't have, triggers with the stuff that's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't quite fall to a 2, but I still think I'd say 3. Middle of the pack. I think once you've read all the other good stuff, you can read this. And you have.
So. This is certainly on the lower end of this is really good. For me, at least. So it's probably, out of all the stuff we've covered on here, it's definitely near the bottom. However, we'll see in 2 months if we
can find the bottom.
All right. Well, let's tally up our scores and then we'll talk about what we're going to do next time. Well, I ended up at a 68.
I ended up at a 56.
Ooh.
We have
so yeah, that is our biggest spread.
Yeah.
Not quite as big as I actually would have thought, but I think that's
a heroin addiction controversy there.
Yep. I think that's a pretty good representation of what we've got going on. So, well, there you have it. The objective score, right?
Somewhere between. Yeah, it's not bad. I mean,
that's a 7 out of 10 for me. So, and 6 out of 10 for you.
Yeah.
Which I think those are pretty fair scores.
Yeah, like I said, if you're a huge fan of it, I tell you I got a bias against this one.
I'm not a huge fan of it. I'm just
tried to judge it on its merits, but
it does have some of those.
It does. It definitely does. But I do think, yeah, if the art wasn't there, because the art I think were my highest scores. If the art was on the lower end, I think Beatrice would be entirely forgotten.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. I don't think I would. I mean, I'm not really into the art, as we know, but I feel like if this art was worse, I probably wouldn't be that interested in it. I don't know that I would ever have picked it up because I think the reason that I picked it up in the first place was because it was highly rated because of the art. So, well, with that all done, I think it's time to talk about what we're going to do next. So, I think the current plan, this is what I'd like to do. Because this one was a little controversial, a little bit. I think for the next episode, I think we should try and do something that's pretty well received. So I think we should leave on the two that we had last time, which were Another Typical Fantasy Romance and Who Made Me a Princess. And just as a reminder, Another Typical Fantasy Romance was recommended to us from Lass of the Red Rose on our Discord, so thank you for that. So leave those two on there and pick another one that we think will be good. And I do have a suggestion for that, but I was wondering before I give you that if you had any thoughts.
I don't. As always, I'm going in as the outsider. I don't know. Other than names, I have no idea what to judge these based on. Though Last of the Red Rose is in our Discord, and they're a fellow Full Metal Alchemist fan, so I trust the judgment, I guess.
Well, they actually gave us another recommendation, but one that was already on the list. And it just so happens that that one is very, very near the top, just under Who Made Me a Princess, which is the current topmost recommendation that I have on the list. So we could go with that. And then they'd have a difficult time choosing in our poll.
Do it.
All right, so we'll go with Not So Wicked Stepmom.
Oh boy. These stepmom ones. I'm always nervous. They haven't turned out to be bad, but I'm always nervous.
Well, I won't spoil anything then. So everyone who gets to vote in the poll on our Patreon, that will be all tiers. Don't spoil it for Ben. If you vote for Not So Wicked Stepmom, it'll be a surprise for him.
I'll post screenshots in the Heroine Addiction Discord.
Yeah.
So we could talk about how far I've gotten.
But any of those three I think are good. I haven't read Another Typical Fantasy Romance yet, so if people choose that one, I'll need to get into that. Who Made Me a Princess is complete. We haven't covered very many complete ones, and that one is getting an anime. There's already screenshots out there of the anime if you wanted to check that out. And Not So Wicked Stepmom is just all around really good. So I don't think we can go wrong with any of those, but we'll see what our patrons think. And so with those three picked, I'll let people know that for the next episode after, so 2 episodes from now, we're gonna go to the bottom of the barrel.
Hell yeah.
So I'm gonna pick a bunch that I know are not any good that I still read. I think we'll try and pick like maybe 9 different ones, and we'll cover 3 of them. They won't be good. You won't like any of them, most likely. The ones that I actually still read do have some merits. They're just not very strong. But if all of our listeners can jump on our Discord and give us some suggestions for ones that aren't any good.
We just really need you on that Discord.
And keep in mind, we've still not found something that I just outright don't like and will not read. So this is a chance for people to find something that I won't read, that I will actively dislike. Kermit's been trying to find stuff that we can cover on Shonen Jumping the Gun that I will actually not like. So, here's another opportunity for that.
I think we've been focusing on passions, I think. We've been trying to find something that you passionately dislike, but maybe we need to go just really boring.
Could be.
Is there like a manhwa where somebody is reincarnated as white toast? And like they need to just like avoid the jam. Actually, no, this sounds really good. I could make this into a surrealist masterpiece.
Reincarnated as a toaster.
Shit. I guess I've seen the reincarnated as a vending machine.
Yeah, there's an anime of that one.
Yeah, it's insane now.
Here is a fan fiction. The Rebirth of Toast. Isekai, it's Rule joking. 34, basically. Yeah. 34 point, what did I say? 34.69. If you can think of it, there's an Isekai of it.
If you can think of it, somebody's been reincarnated as it.
Well, as I said, all our patrons, all the tiers on Patreon get to vote on the next series. And we're open to suggestions. Jump on the Discord, send an email, all that kind of stuff. All the social links are up on the website, which I will remind you of in just a moment. Well, thanks for listening. Before we go, I want to just thank Sugoi Mart for partnering with us. Sugoi Mart's a retailer of Japanese snacks, drinks, toys, and merch. They have a lot of cool stuff you can't get outside Japan. Check the link in the description or use code APR15 at checkout to get 15% off your first order, which also helps us out. As at the time of this episode's release, it's a really, really good time to order. But I wouldn't wait too long because they do ship from Japan, so it takes a little bit to get here. So if you're looking for Christmas presents for people, order right now. As of right now. If you're listening to this after like December 15th, it's probably too late. And you can let us know what you think on social media. And tell us if you have any series you want us to cover. As I mentioned very recently. You can check out our website, animepodcasterreincarnation.com, where you can leave comments about the podcast episodes and also find other posts and reviews. And of course, we've got the Discord where you can come chat with us or give us recommendations. And come give us some series that are, really terrible that you think I might actually not like. And don't forget to check out our Patreon. Supporters get perks like getting to vote on which series we cover, as well as getting the high-quality stereo version of the episodes early. And of course, we want to hear what perks you guys want. Do you want Ben to speedrun a manhwa on stream and give us the... Mystery Science Theater 3000 treatment? Let us know.
Audio manhwa.
And of course, we don't want to forget our patrons. We want to give them a shout out. At our Reincarnator tier, we've got Cake Dwarf and Moon. And at our Merchant tier, we've got Kill Hour. And last and definitely not least, at our Commoner tier, we've got Rena. Thanks so much to all our patrons. Don't forget to check out the regular podcast, That Time I Got Reincarnated in the Same World as an Anime Podcaster. And if you can't get enough of Ben talking about reading things, you can check out his other podcast, Words About Books. Is November of Our Discontent over?
I think so. I don't know. We haven't recorded any of the Christmas stuff yet, but I've read it. And I don't like Christmas, and this hasn't changed my mind. So there's that.
I gotta say, I was disappointed with November of Our Discontent because there's really only the one that was bad.
Well, it's just maybe it's all this heroin addiction. It's rubbing off on me. Maybe I just enjoy things too much now. They can't beat me.
Eh? I think that's great. It's a good attitude to have. I just wonder when people will get. Well, people are already upset about my unbridled enthusiasm for things. Everybody on the Shonen Jumping the Gun channel is like, we gotta find something that Brad won't like.
There's got to be something. Like eventually you're just going to run out. Eventually you're going to run out of time, and you'll have to choose.
Oh yeah, probably. I mean, I have a bunch of stuff on my plan to read list. I have a bunch of stuff on my like in the middle list where it's like I've read some of it, but it didn't grab me enough to binge through the whole thing, so I just read a little bit over time. There's definitely those, but like I still enjoy all that stuff. Just isn't at the top of my list.
The only other option I can think of is to just put increasingly offensive material in front of you until out of shame you will not admit you enjoyed it.
That might happen. Yeah. And it would just, I mean, it would probably be just me not admitting it.
We'll get there.
Hey, if I have a line, I don't know where it is. No, I do. I don't like NTR stuff.
Oh.
But I still read some of it. So I don't know.
Interesting. Okay, let's everybody add that into your simulations. NTR. We've got a lead.
There's actually one NTR isekai that I really like. But it's also not like over the top like some of them are. So anyway, thanks again for listening. We hope you had a good time. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go trim my manhwa nail.
'Cause I'll see you again. 'Cause I'll see you again.
All right, recording has started. Now you have to put on an act now.
I'm centering. I just have to not ramble. That's the act.
I think people like that sometimes. As long as it's moderately coherent, right?
Yeah, every once in a while I let it go. But
What were you gonna say?
oh no. Is it controversial? That makes me feel better.
Apparently.
Okay.
Everybody keeps telling me that. I keep reading comments that are like, oh, people are saying... I haven't actually read any of the controversial... like, people who are like, oh, this is... But people keep alluding to the fact that people are saying things like that.
Okay, well, I think it's me. I think I'm people.
Okay.
So that's going to be good. Okay.
There's people who agree with you. I don't know where they are, but they exist.
I'll find them.
All right. El Paso.
That's what I would say. I kept calling it El Paso. But that was just dyslexia, I guess.
Nostaros.
Yeah. Alessandro.
I think Nostaros is easier to say. Don't forget to check out the regular podcast. That time I got reincarnated in the same world as an anime podcaster. What?
Kermit wasn't here, so I had to do the in the same world.
Okay. I have to line that up.
Don't line it up. It's close. It's really close.
Oh, okay. How would you use a manhwa nail?
How would you
use it to turn the pages, or
use it to hammer a nail into the manga you don't like?
Oh, did you not get that? Like a Coke nail.
Oh.
Great. Nobody else is going to get that either.
Maybe I just don't do enough drugs.
Well. Should definitely do more drugs.
Maybe I'd like things more.
I don't do that many drugs.